Hello, everybody, my friends. Welcome in. This is Citizen Central Podcast. We're coming back to you after a couple of months hiatus with you on episode 20 with a couple of my good friends from around the Star Citizen community. And I wanted to bring a couple of these folks in to talk about the game. You know what game, Star Citizen. And we want to talk about the state of the game, kind of the lead up to 4.0, what's going on with it right now. And we are here live on YouTube and Twitch. I appreciate y'all joining me. Thank you all so much. I'm going to go ahead and introduce you so we're not stepping on each other's toes, but then I'm going to let you have the floor because you guys may notice, or you may have heard from the other podcast, I'm a little sick, so I'm just going to pass it on to these guys, give them the mic, and just lean off to the side, hack up my lungs. But we've got everybody with me today. Y'all do kind of different types of content, right? Morphologist, cinematic, great work, opinion pieces, love it. Love it, love it, love it. Sulyce, you host the Beyond the Verse podcast. I've been on it a couple times, and I got to say, great focus on the community, asking good questions, getting great answers, man. Thank you so much for joining me. Astrohistorian, or the Astropub, whichever one you know well. Captain's Table podcast, Lore Stradamus, the guy, the teacher, the professor of Star Citizen, if you will, and Voidude. You make Voidude content. You know, I think everybody, if you haven't seen Voidude's videos, go check them out. Good gameplay videos. But we've got a good panel here of four of, in my opinion, the best creators in Star Citizen to talk about some of the hard topics, ask some difficult questions, and hopefully get a good amount of drama in the comments. I don't think it should be too difficult. What do you guys think?
The fact that all of us are here in the first place means that you've already got a comment about how somebody doesn't like any of us. One of us in there, so someone's going to make some comment already in the comments about I can't watch it because Morph is on, or because
right,
Paul is on.
Yes. I forget about those. Those are the good ones.
Very controversial.
Yes,
you got that guy
for
on
existing. Here. Yeah, for existing. I'm sorry for existing, yo.
Dude, sometimes you just gotta take one for the team and not exist a couple days. What can I say?
Man, I wish. Some days I wish.
Just let me not exist until 4.0 comes out. If we can arrange that, that's cool. All right, so it's been quite the week already. We've got different news and different things going on, and we will talk a little bit about some of the more topical things that are going on throughout this talk. But the main topic of the day is the state of Star Citizen overall. 2024 has been a year of a lot of expectation setting, and I think we can all agree that it hasn't quite met those expectations, everybody to a different degree. But I would love to hear from you guys, just to get us straight into this conversation. How do you feel about the messaging that we saw at the end of last year with CitizenCon, with Inside Star Citizen in December telling us, things about Preview Channel, about certain features that were going to be in the works and in players' hands, compared to what we have now seen of the year so far? We're now in September. I'm just going to throw it out there. Whoever wants to go first. Yeah. Do it. Yeah, just rip it off and stick a needle in there.
Before we get started, though, I just wanted to tune into chat because you said you're streaming on YouTube as well, right?
Yeah, I did.
It still says it's waiting. It doesn't say it's live yet.
YouTube. All right.
I just thought it'd be important to let you know.
Okay, go ahead and we'll continue on then, and I'll try and do some tech solving in the background.
You have to go to the streaming part of YouTube, and you have to actually, there's another button you have to click on to continue going live.
It's a restream problem.
Yeah, it's a restream.
Okay. But anyways,
sometimes loses his mind.
The question at hand: how have you guys felt about the year so far?
It's a little insult to injury, right? Let's rip the Band-Aid off. I'm going to simplify this in my mind, that it's the competition, or it's the discrepancy between how devs talk about the game and how marketing talks about the game. And I think at the end of CitizenCon, we got the dev messaging. Hey, Squadron 42 is in polishing phase. Pyro is going to be next year. And that's really how they left it at CitizenCon. But then marketing gets a hold of it, and we get these promises, right? Inside Star Citizen, we get a promise that in H2 or in H1, the first half of the year, we're getting everything but Pyro. Everything in the first 6 months. And then they said Pyro over the summer. And I think that is where a lot of the community has started breaking down the mistrust or this perception. whether it's valid or not, this perception that Star Citizen is in a bad place, because we don't know who to listen to, right? The overall communication is challenging, to say the least. So I think that's the root of it, in my opinion.
I'm gonna hop on there and say I think Sulyce is pretty much right. Like I think I watched the thing at the end of the year where for ISC where Jared said the things. And for those you don't know, the last year, the end of the last year, the ISC live last year, Jared he took his backer hat, or he put his backer hat on, as he said, and was more talking about, like, gushing about all of the cool things that were going to happen next year, and then took it off and then said, but this is a caveat, as a dev, things change, these could not be the same. But the second he put his backer hat on and started talking is the second I'm like, no one heard that latter part. No one heard the latter part at all, because it's about setting expectations appropriately. And the problem is that CIG has always not set expectations appropriately, and hype, regardless of your opinion on like over like enthusiasm, I guess you could say, and cultivating hype properly is an important part of making sure that you can get attention to any product or to any sort of like release. And CIG has notoriously been awful at that. They hype when they should be not talking, and then they talk and then they don't talk when they should be hyping, or don't talk when they should be like explaining. Like their marketing is bad, but not because it's like buy ships. It's their marketing is bad because they don't know how to manage the ebb and flow of like public relations. So
yeah, I could agree there. They've definitely got they've got a way of telling us things. Well, it always goes back to the whole, they're telling us what they expect and not what should be expected out loud from a game that's in development, which most companies don't have to deal with because they finish things before they announce them. And it seems to always go back to the fact that, like, they're just very, very enthusiastic about telling us more things. Sorry, Void, what were you going to say?
And I mean, it's ultimately a good thing, right? Like, we want to see enthusiastic devs. You know, you don't want to like check in with them and they're all like, "Oh my god, the sky's falling," kind of a thing. Which it's never really the case, right? They always portray themselves as being optimistic, which is fine. But ultimately it's disappointing, right? If I sit here and think, what was the messaging I took away from this time last year, or maybe a little bit forward into October this time last year? I remember back at CitizenCon, and I remember, the messaging that I took away was, oh, by this time next year, we're going to have all this stuff. We don't have all this stuff, and that's disappointing. And it's like, okay, well, carry on with your life, and let's see what happens next year, kind of a thing, right? There's not much anybody can really do about it. And if, them carrying on selling ships and building hype and marketing the game in a way, because that's a big topic, right, is how disingenuous the marketing has become over time. And I mean, is that just marketing? Or that, from their perspective, they look at it as it's like, if it's not broken, don't fix it, right? Is there any other way to fund this project and keep things going, right? I mean, I'm of the mind that, like, because Star Citizen is such a special project, I give it the benefit of the doubt most of the time. I'll reserve the right to get incredibly critical once a Squadron 42 is out, and then patch on patch that happens to Star Citizen, I'll be like far more critical of it, right? Because they're making a whole ass other game at the same time, and because that's behind completely closed doors. Is this enough of a justification? Is this okay? I don't know, but it's my reasoning and my sort of opinion, and that's kind of how I see things, right?
Yeah, I'm very much in the same boat as that. It's like, once server meshing is out, once Squadron 42 is out, my level of criticism of how things go definitely changes, because their plate starts to clear up a bit more to just develop the things in the PU that we really care about. And I think that's a good point about the marketing. I think that's really what a problem a lot of people have with the game overall is, it does feel like, as most of you have said, the marketing is really disconnected from the way that the game plays. You guys all sort of agree on the fact that the marketing is a problem?
Yeah. I all I have to say about that is, well, in case you missed it, do y'all remember that beginning of the year? They started off on a very bad foot. They did an entire sale that was just, in case you missed it, being like, make more, please give us more money.
Yeah.
You know,
That was not good.
It was an awful feeling, because it's like, oh, beginning of the year, we've kind of completely slowed down in production because, you know, this is a fact that I think a lot of people in the community, and this is just gaming in general, don't realize that the people who make video games are human, and they need things like human interaction and time off and
water, all these things. So
shelter. They want to play other games. So like, for those of you who are new to the community, because I've seen a lot of new people coming in recently, especially over the last couple of years, is that that CIG basically slows down, and at the end of December they go on break, and then they kind of slow down over January for many different reasons. And so it's like this time period when information is low, so hype is a little bit lower. People are still kind of buzzing about the end of the year, but it's generally okay. And then they hit us with a sale, right at the very beginning of like, here's a sale, not connected to anything, nothing new, no new ships. It's just buy more ships, please. It's like, come on, guys, you should know. You should be able to read your audience better than this. Like you've been doing this for 12 years. Like, I think that's a great example of that sort of disconnect that marketing has with the reality of the game.
Well, the sad part is they haven't learned. I'm sorry, Morphologis. They haven't learned since 3.18, and they haven't learned from the example that the Astrohistorian just provided. Because look at 3.24. 3.24 drops and a tweet goes out saying, "Who's accepted their cargo mission?" No one can accept the cargo mission. Like at the time, you can now.
That tone deafness is, you know, that's one thing that grates me with a lot of like modern sort of corporate marketing, is just how flippant tone deaf it becomes, and it's excruciating, man. And it's like, it's so easy to do so much better.
Yeah, marketing's come off as a bit too canned recently, and not enough connected to what's actually going on with the community. And I don't like that about the way Star Citizen has been going. I mean, it used to be more, it used to feel a little bit more personal and a little bit more intimate, like an indie studio. But as CIG has gotten bigger, you know, we've gotten more and more corporate. And I mean, there was even a developer recently that left it, commented on the more corporate nature of the studio and how they don't feel as comfortable. They weren't as happy working there as they initially were. So, and I actually have spoken with him before. He liked his experience there. It wasn't like he hated CIG. I just want to be clear. It's not like some big drama I'm trying to put up. But I mean, the reality is that CIG's gotten bigger, and with being bigger comes a lot more paperwork, a lot more red tape, a lot more structure, and unfortunately, the side effect of that can be that things start to seem too corporate, too canned, a little bit impersonal. And I hope that they can get back to that more connected feeling with the community. But I mean, I for me, to answer the question how I feel about the messaging from last year, compared to the reality of this year, I definitely think marketing is definitely, like you guys have said, I think, a really important stuff. Like the marketing has definitely been an issue, but for me, I feel like it's been a lack of contextual communication, like a lack of specific communication on what's going on with reality versus expectation. So like at the end of the year, we already know that they talked about like all these features. We hope to get them in the next 12 months. They always, I mean, if you've been following CIG for a while, you know, they always don't make direct promises anymore. They always like kind of give themselves a way out, but it was as close to promises we'll ever get from CIG to say, hey, we're going to try to get this stuff to you in the next 12 months. Right. So it is disappointing, especially given that Pyro has been talked about for the past 4 years. I mean, since the CitizenCon in 2019, when they first saw the gates, like they've been talking about this for that long. It's disappointing and a bit hard to stay excited when it's been like just down the road around the corner for so many years. And, you know, I thought, you know, given the amount of time that they've had so far to develop this next system, I would hope that we would see, I'd hope that we could rely on their 12-month estimate. But as it so turns out, it's not the case. And also the acceleration development, which was the expectation that they had set with them saying that they're shifting teams over from Squadron to Star Citizen, reforming teams and making plans for them to focus more on Star Citizen content, seeing as how Squadron has moved to feature complete status and it's more bug fixing now. A lot of bug fixing, but still they can ship people over. I've not really seen that come to fruition. A lot of the stuff that we saw in 3.2.3 was stuff that was brought over from Squadron, developed for Squadron, and then changed and polished in a way that would be a little bit different for Star Citizen. But ultimately, it was content not developed by those teams for Star Citizen after they moved over to Star Citizen. So I've not seen that happen this year. The thing is, though, what frustrates me is just that we've not had any communication about why that is. I mean, fine, it's delayed again. What can we do but sit here and wait? I just want to know, as somebody who continues to want to back the game, I would love to know what's going on. And we actually just found out one of the reasons for 4.0 being delayed in the Star Citizen Live yesterday. I don't know if you guys have watched it, but they didn't directly say this. But if you put those two things together, you realize the reason why it's delayed is because they had to rewrite the netcode. Based on the 800 player testing that they'd done earlier this year, they found it didn't work. They had to completely rewrite it, and that's the issue. Usually, when CIG goes radio silent on something, it's because something didn't work, and they're not going to say anything until they have a solution. That's just the way they've been communicating with a lot of big features recently. And I'm guessing they probably had no idea how long it was going to take for them to come up with something else to fix it. And by the way, that netcoding is being tested in 3.24. Right now, half the servers are the old netcode, half the servers are the new netcode, and they're using the data to compare whether or not the new netcode is actually improving the performance, and it is. Apparently, it's actually solved some of the problems. So that's the reason for the preview testing that they've been talking about doing, the 1,000 player preview testing. That's been pushed back a little bit. But I mean, this is the kind of thing I'd have loved to know earlier about. Personally, myself, I understand from a marketing standpoint, saying that something we worked on didn't work and we need to go back to the drawing board probably doesn't look super great. Some people will run with that and be super negative about it. But is this open development or not? I like knowing about these details, and I think it keeps me more interested in something rather than just going radio silent and for most of the year leading up to CitizenCon about these major issues. So anyway, that's just how I feel about it. It just doesn't. Reality has not lived up to expectation for me this year, and it still hasn't. And I'm not quite sure how I'm going to feel going into CitizenCon this year, knowing that everything that they talked about last year, not even half of it's been delivered yet. I don't know how I can be excited. I want to be. I'm still going. I'm still going to enjoy talking to backers and enjoy talking about the game, talking to developers. But at the back of my mind, it's going to be, all the things they're talking about is great, but what happened last year still hasn't happened. We have still not gotten to know. So
yeah.
Anyway,
to just add on to that, I think one of the few ways they could actually improve about this is actually having a 4.0 in some state out before CitizenCon, even if it's Evocati or something like that, to make people less mad. Because the road to the joke of the road to Pyro has been beaten to death so hard that it's now not a road, it's just dirt. We started off on a super highway, and we've walked on this road for so long that it's now just like a deer path in the woods.
Yeah, an overgrown deer path. We're not quite sure if we're following the right way. It's meandering, Maybe there's a cliff across that brush we're going to fall off. We don't know. Apparently, it's one of those cliffs.
It's infested with copians, and you don't know when someone's going to show up and drop a bomb on you randomly. That's what it feels like going down the road. And I think CIG does a bad job of explaining that. And I'm with you on that one, Morph. It's about it'd be nice to know some of these things beforehand, because CIG does they do this radio silent thing. And I think the reason why, for context, for a lot of folks who may not know this, is that CIG used to do that. They used to tell us, this went wrong, we're going to fix it. And what happened was people lost their mind because they're like, the game is never going to work, it's never going to function. And then so CIG did they like the swing to extremes. They swang from being like, we're going to talk about the game too, we're not going to talk about it at all. And then they didn't say anything for a year, which was 3.263, and everyone was like, everything's bad, everything's failing, oh no, because they're not telling us anything. And so CIG hasn't found that sweet spot of being able to here's the thing, this thing didn't work, don't worry, we're working on solutions, we'll be back to you when we have more solutions, and then move on. Something like that I think would work. But
they've definitely gotten more comfortable with the whole, hey, something's wrong, let's not say anything till we have something to fix it first. And that leads to a lot of dead time.
I don't like that, though. I mean, if they just told us a little bit, even just this didn't work out to our expectations. We're working on something new. We'll come back to you when we have that information. Would, I think, do a lot more smoothing over. You're still going to have people get mad. Like CIG is going to get people mad at them no matter what they do. Like CIG could release 4.0, it could be flawless. Someone will find something to be mad about because it's video game in the year 2024. Someone's going to find something to be mad about in a video game. But
yeah, it's definitely a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation for them. But like being radio silent is never the answer, right? Transparency, and then let the community deal with the facts, right? Like if there's a tech issue, like Morphologis was bringing up, if there's a tech issue with 4.0, just tell us, right? Just tell us very point blank. And I think a way to fix this, and please somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but this is one of the first development games that I've been associated with that doesn't have like a social media handle for tech issues, right? So like World of Warcraft, Elder Scrolls Online, they have a marketing that's 100% positive, selling money, which is what they're doing. And then they have like a tech support social media handle that just is very transparent. Like this is what it's broken. Servers are going to be down for a little bit, but it's very, very, here's the information, community, digest it, do with it what you will. But it's as transparent as you can possibly imagine. And I personally believe segregating the message like that is the answer. Let marketing do their thing. Let them push new ship sells and what they're supposed to be doing, but then have a source other than having to go to Spectrum and looking at the message of the day to get an idea of what's coming down the pipeline or why something broke. Be upfront about it and put that crap out there in social media and let the digestion, happen.
Well, that's one of the things that you were saying, Paul, in the beginning, was that there should be a more easy to find central place for all communication. And I mean, obviously not saying, like Sulyce, you were just saying this is marketing versus like tech communications, but it can be kind of hard to get the right message on certain things. I see people, sometimes they'll be on the subreddit and they're like, hey, can I get a notification here on our Star Citizen when this patch goes live? And it's like, well, you could just go to so-and-so place for that. And they're like, yeah, but that's not where I get my info on what happened in Star Citizen Live. And like you see different people make summaries of different stuff, and you kind of have to start depending on the third-party places to get you that message beforehand. And it would be nice if there was like a more easy to find place. Even when they do the messaging on Twitter, it would be nice if they dropped a link to the specific place that message came from. And I know Spectrum is like a good place to go to for that stuff, but even when I get to Spectrum, I'm like, do I go to general chat for the pinned post, or do I go to announcements?
Comments,
yeah,
the dev tracker.
It would be nice maybe if there was like a button on the homepage that said this is where all the stuff is going to come from. I usually just go to the dev tracker down on the bottom of the homepage to see the important stuff.
A good example of this is I'm sure many of us use a third-party tool that that backers have created, which basically scrapes dev. Like every time a dev says something, every time there's a new post on Star Citizen, there's the Star Citizen Reddit has a dedicated team of people that just like takes the message of the day and all those sorts of things and puts it into one stream that you can have access to, so that you can see all of the different information. So you can just do that. That's what the social media, there should be a social media like site just for Star Citizen updates that has those sorts of things. So yeah, yes, you're going to get a concentrated like fire hose stream to your face of information sometimes. Like dev posted this, dev posted that, dev posted that. But like, why is a third
phones
party
just pinging constantly?
Yeah, why is a third party source doing a better job than CIG's own internal team in terms of like collating that information? Because don't get me wrong, I love the fact that devs will pop into Morph's chat or my chat or Void chat or like Mike or whoever and like give us some cool things. Like I love that. Please don't stop doing that. CIG, that's great. But like, even if like, let's just say Burks is probably one of the biggest English speaking streamers in for Star Citizen, who's constantly on, gets 500 to 1,000 people sometimes. That's 1,000 people. There are millions of Star Citizen backers who follow this. Even if we just like take 10% of that, that's still like significantly more people who don't follow Burks who would like to know that same information on a source that they could get, so that it didn't have to be spread out through like the ether and then be like broken down by different people and having their own different opinions based off of something. It becomes a game of telephone of who said what when, and it becomes an impossible sort of task to follow. And then no wonder you have misinformation that spreads through Star Citizen all the time, because you know, everyone's opinion is going to be different, but also because you don't know who you heard that information from, and that will spin the entire idea. CIG just needs some sort of just the facts, ma'am, sort of like feed that we can actually reach.
At the same time, it is really nice to just hear some casual one-off information from somebody, and it might not be super crucial stuff, but just to be able to, like, if you are more involved, you do get to learn a little bit more. And there's like a delicate balance that I don't think can ever be perfectly hit. I think a lot of people, like, they'll kind of lose either way and win either way based on what they do. But feeling like there is an open dialogue with the devs in different mediums is nice. And I don't know if they'll ever be able to centralize that truly. But
that's more of a supporting strategy, not a primary strategy in the dissemination of information, right? I think it's a nice thing that they're enabled to do that, but I don't think that's the solution. And I don't think you're suggesting that. I want to point that out.
Yeah.
I feel like CIG kind of shoots themselves in the foot repeatedly when it comes to communication. They've got the perfect place to do it. It's YouTube. It's the Star Citizen Live and the Inside Star Citizen stuff. I mean, I know Jared can't be everywhere at once and know everything at any one time, but everyone must have known that 4.0, for example, was going to be delayed before they announced it. Like, it wasn't that suddenly one day Jake was like, I'm going to post Star Citizen, we're pushing back 4.0, and like that happened that day that they knew that. No, they probably knew a month earlier, weeks earlier. It'd have been nice if somebody could have said, this could be a pretty big deal for the community and people could take this the wrong way. Why don't we get ahead of this and make sure that information is released alongside this announcement to contextualize why this is happening, as opposed to waiting a couple weeks and then saying something that they don't even directly say, well, this was why. I had to put that together, why that was the cause. Like, it's pretty obvious it's the cause, but normal people who are just following the project aren't going to do that. What they're going to do is they're going to run with the easiest and quickest takeaway, which is it's been delayed, and then they're going to disseminate this negative information, and you're going to have you're going to just have a continuation of the degradation of interest in Star Citizen from new backers, which is what we've been noticing since last year. Is a huge drop in new people coming into the project. Like, CIG has to acknowledge that, even though I understand some people in the industry are used to working a certain way in developing a game. You work on the game, you work on it, and then you release it. And you don't have to worry about communicating with people who play your game and continually delivering content. It is a bit of a hassle. There is a cost to a release, like Benoit said. But the thing is that Star Citizen relies on those continuous releases of information and content in order to continue funding the game. If that didn't happen, the game wouldn't be funded and nobody would have a job. So I think it's super important to acknowledge that this is possibly the most important thing that they have to do in order to keep CIG going, or to keep Star Citizen going, is to make sure that they're communicating when it's important, what's important, and not waiting too long. Because then it creates these scenarios where people create content based on the information that they have, which could possibly take what they're saying in the wrong way. It could, like, for me, I don't think I took what they said the wrong way, but I felt pretty bad when that release happened. I expressed my feeling that I'm losing a little bit of hope. We've been waiting for many years for just this one system. We've got 99 more systems to go. You know, this is feeling a little bit depressing. I would have liked that information to come out sooner. So, like, and I'm not the only one. I'm looking at my ARMCO community. We've got like 30,000 people. My Star Citizen chat, or the Star Citizen section of the community, which often just kind of has their own thing going and independently from me. They run their own events and stuff. It's been super dead this year. Like, people are just, losing interest, going off and playing other games and stuff. Like, there's definitely a decline that I'm noticing in interest in Star Citizen, and it really pains me. And this communication thing would be one great way for them to stem the tide.
I'm curious, though. Do you think that those people will be right back if 4.0 came out and made a splash?
Oh, 100%. 100%. Yeah. And not only them, a ton of people who have been watching from the sidelines. I know that there's lots of people in my chat who said, I've never bought Star Citizen. I want to see 4.0 come out before I buy the game. So, yeah, for sure.
Do you think then that, like, obviously there's a decrease, and I think this is something that happens over the summer generally, but this year I do specifically think that it was worse and in big part because of the messaging from last year. But do you think it tangibly makes a big difference to them if they have 2 months of decreased interest, if that means that they still technically are getting that time to work on something?
I think it could. I mean, I think it's not safe to assume that that there always will be an uptick in interest. I mean, if they want to survive, I'm not trying to tell them how to do their own jobs, but from my experience, I just don't think it's safe to assume that people will always come back and always still be interested. Just operate on the assumption that they won't,
That's true.
and that'll keep you safer than
Yeah.
just assuming.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I hate to talk again because I feel like I'm dominating too much, but that's actually something I've been really thinking when I said earlier that CIG doesn't know how to handle hype. I think they don't understand how to consistently keep a buzz about the game, which is important for a game in development, especially a game that relies on backer funds to make sure that you're engaging people throughout most of the year. CIG does this thing where they do all of their effort, maximum effort from September through December. Then they go on break and do a little bit more effort for IAE, not quite as much as the end of the year, but like, between March and May, it's pretty good. And then June, they just kind of go, all right, heads down. We'll see you in 3 months. And that is an awful thing. Yes, I know, generally speaking, gaming goes down in the summer. It always happens in the summer. But they could be keeping a little like, oh, this new event dropped. This little thing dropped. There are things they could do which don't have to do with necessarily development. They could be just marketing things. I call this the marketing beta, which we all have seen before. Where like a company will release a beta, and they say, oh, it's a beta. It's a technical test, and yeah, they'll get data from it, but it's a marketing strategy. It's designed to launch it so you can play the game early, and you get little things here and there and sort of things. Like I said, if they had dropped a Pyrotech preview, just done the Playground again, but in like middle of July, and did it over a week, where the first couple of days was content creators and Evocati, and then but like live, so like you just the first wave for the first couple of days, and then slowly open it up to like by the end of the week you have everybody. No one would be despairing right now. People would be like, oh, I can play Pyro. I can feel the Pyro. I know what they're doing. I can see what the content that they're making. I don't feel as if this is impossible and never coming out. I can actually physically play the actions of it. There'll be people who are more nitpicky or more critical about it, but that's not the people you care about. You care about the overall, the vibes, man, the vibes of the game, and that will keep the vibes being good for the rest of the summer, and then move you into it. You just need to kind of have a little bit of bump. And I think CIG just doesn't do that bump.
I think I 100% with you. I've been nodding the whole way you've been talking about this, Paul, because I 100% with you. But I also feel like the marketing team could stop making really silly decisions. Like, there's been a couple of sales they've done which have been tied to in-game events, which have just looked bad. There needs to be some acknowledgement of the low point in the middle of the year and try to generate some goodwill in a time where that interest is low. And one of the things they could have done was just maybe given away some free ships as part of an event instead of saying you get the honor of paying for a ship by winning this thing. There's just things like this. Just one example, but I mean, I think they need to look at how they can run events to. And not let marketing and making money always be the number one concern. It feels like. I mean, that's the perception that I have. Is it always feels like money is the most important thing when it comes to ships and new content. It's always stocked behind some kind of pay gate, and it's not something that we get in the game. Like, when is the last time we get a ship skin to be able to buy in the game?
The game is very heavily. It's a lot of times this game comes up and people talk about ship sales as being like basically their only motive, but it is interesting to see how much more the funding increases, not when they release ships, but when the game is good. Like, if they release a good 4.0, there's no doubt in my mind, if they dropped no new ships with 4.0, but they released a good 4.0, they'd make way more money than any other ship sale they've made over the last year or two. And I think it's important to keep that in mind, that I don't think they don't know that. Like, as CIG, I think they realize that if they can make the game better, it will be better. It's not necessarily just about the ship sales.
3.24 released, and CIG has managed in terms of sales. They went up to the point where they've overtaken 2023 a year. It's not the best year, not best August of all time, but they're ahead of last year's funding. They didn't release any new ships, and it wasn't because of the Peregrine. It's because they released 3.24. That's because they released the patch. That's why people came back and bought things, because they released a new patch, because they're like, oh, right, this game exists, you know?
Yeah, and you can also argue that the ship sales are kind of a scapegoat, right? Like, you know, we have a prediction going on right now that the tech preview channel got delayed or didn't happen so quick. Let's get the exosuit or the mech suit out there and let's have this, you know, other push. You could argue that some of these ship sales are just, hey, we need to buy time. We need to keep things going. And I think that's another use case for that, unfortunately. I think marketing, you know, you talk about the marketing strategies, the win back, acquisition, and retain, right? The three pillars of marketing. We do acquisition very well, like new gamers. We do that very well. The win back, I would say, is like okay. Like, I don't know. You could argue
average,
it's average. It's average, but the retain is abysmal. And I think that's what everybody's hitting on is you have these highs and lows, and in these lows, they're like, quick, in case you missed an event, boom, and they'll throw everything out there for you to spend more money.
Yeah, that was not a good one. That was people predicted that too. I have a video that it'll probably end up going public sometime in the next few months of this infographic that somebody made a while back, and it has this whole trajectory of Star Citizen kind of thing. It's this weird graph. It goes up and then it goes crashing down. And it's got some interesting highlights on there. There were a couple of like, oh, Mass Effect Andromeda comes out and Starfield comes out and they killed Star Citizen. Obviously those didn't happen, but there's also some interesting comments about like, they'll start to do these FOMO sales of like, oh, in case you missed it, or they'll start to release ships that weren't originally supposed to be available to everybody. And it's like, there's some truth to this infographic, even if you want to look at it and kind of laugh at the overall prediction. Like they're falling for some of those traps, which I think is a bit disappointing to a lot of people. But the big topic really this year, and for the last 8 years now, has been 4.0. And with that minor delay from Q3 to Q4, which I just realized that summer goes until September 22nd. It doesn't feel like summer to me in mid-September, but they basically delayed it past September. And there's a whole bunch of predictions as to what's going to happen with it. We talked about how the Zeus has been brought to 324.1 and why that might have happened. I'd be interested in hearing from you guys specifically if you think we'll see 4.0 in player hands in any way this year, and then if you think that maybe we will see it live. Voidude, let's start off with you. What do you think?
Your audio.
Yeah.
Sorry, man. Can you guys hear me?
There we go.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I'm not too concerned if we don't see it this year. I'm more concerned about like seeing some kind of like solid actual release of Squadron. Pyro getting delayed at this point is just par for the course. It's just, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if it gets delayed again, which is sad if you think about it. Is there a chance that we'll see it in some form or fashion by the end of the year in an Evo build, or maybe even an early PTU or something like that? I mean, it would be nice. I think there's a chance. I think right towards the end of the year we could get something like that. But I don't think we're going to see a live build until sort of first quarter, second quarter next year at the rate we're going.
All right. Anybody else?
Yeah, I'll jump in on that. Like, I'm going to turn the tone of this podcast real quick. Yeah, I think we do. I think we do see it. They pushed it back to Q4. Q4 is October, so theoretically they could launch October 1st, and it would hit that Q4 mark. So the optimistic approach is, yeah, October 1st, let's go. But they have 3 months. We've talked about this before, Space Tomato, on my show, but they have to launch something before CitizenCon, or everything during CitizenCon is going to be completely ignored. So in some shape or form, I kind of agree with Paul, even if it's without server meshing, and I doubt CIG would ever do that, but just launching Pyro to play in, just like Stanton is right now, something has to be done in this next quarter. I don't see them pushing the whole thing out until 2025. I don't see that happening. So if you look at like dev notes, patch notes, the monthly reports, like the planets are done, the locations are done, really the people and the archetypes are done, like all of the actual like Stanton-esque things are done in Pyro. So in theory, and we saw it in the tech preview channel earlier this year and during CitizenCon. Pyro is playable, and it's going to probably be in Evo's hands in the next couple of weeks. I truly do feel that way. Now, whether or not it's in the PTU going into CitizenCon or live, I think that's the debate. But I truly do see Pyro in the hands of gamers in Q4. I don't have enough evidence to say it doesn't, other than precedent, other than the fact that CIG does CIG things.
Yeah.
What I'm reading is it's very feasible that it happens within the next 3 months.
I think like a open PTU at least has to happen. And I think there is a possibility it doesn't, if things are particularly bad. But seeing them going into the preview channel testing with server meshing this week now, obviously they've had a couple of delays on that already. Delays, like a most favorite word in this game. But going into that, I would be surprised to see them start testing with server meshing this week, and then for 3 months straight not be able to get that to some form of PTU. That would be a lot of not really making much movement. Even when you look at 318 came out, and within about a month they have it on the open PTU. Now, they had open PTU out for like 2 or 3 months, but that was them trying to collect that data on a wider scale. And I feel like they could try and do the same sort of thing in with the 4.0 patch. But I don't know. What about you other two? What do you think?
I'm optimistic. I thought CIG. I actually was concerned. I made a video about this a while ago that I think a lot of people got. Whenever you release something optimistic or even sounds optimistic, it wasn't really optimistic.
How dare you?
In the downtimes, people get mad at you. But I released a video that basically said I think CIG is going to release 4.0 before CitizenCon, and based off of the information at the time, for me it was clear that CIG was like, Chris was talking about 1.0 stuff in like March, and other developers were talking about 1.0 stuff in like March. So like there was a lot of just things being said by CIG, which was clear, even like other developers, that like, yeah, we've stopped working on 4.0 like in June. You know, some aspects like Yogi was talking about how pretty much all the stuff that Yogi was working on with 4.0 stuff was done shortly after they released 3.23. And so a lot of the content for 4.0 is done. It's now down to the tech backend, which they've been testing frequently over the last couple of months. And obviously now that they're out and talking about, yeah, this failed, and so we've been reworking on it, and now it's working. And that's the reason why they're talking about it, because as Morph said, CIG doesn't talk about failures until after they're done, and then they've already had a solution, so they can kind of cap that off. So I thought that 4.0 was going to come out not in a full way. I thought it was going to be CIG just kind of like cutting half of the patch away and being like, this basic stuff go, and that was it. Because if they did this basic stuff, they could get it out and technically release it before that, and then it would be a dumpster fire, and they'd have to fix it for the rest of the year, and then take everything that wasn't in 4.0 and cut it into 2 patches, so it's 4.0 and 4.1, and that could still happen. But I was like, this get ready for an awful 4.0 experience, and they didn't do that. At least they don't seem to be doing that. They're instead pushing it back so that they can maybe get more time with it or whatever. But I still think we're going to get 4.0 by like IAE. And if I'm going to be pessimistic, we'll have it before. It'll come screaming in at the 11th hour at the last day of December, and then they'll leave and go for a break. And honestly, I think the obsession about 4.0 is a little weird at times as well, because like we all know that this game's more than 4.0. So
it's not. That's endgame. They could just stop development right there.
But like I think the real question should be, it's not like, is 4.0 going to make it, but is 4.0 going to be good?
It has to be.
Well, that's the thing, because it could also be a situation where you go today. If it released today, it would be a dumpster fire. But if it releases in 6 months, is it still a dumpster fire? Because like CIG doesn't really release patches that are stable. Like 3.24 didn't have the thing working that was its name. So when it first released, That's typical for CIG.
But like this is an 8-year milestone. Like this is what has been pointed to every single time anything has come up over the last almost a decade now. There's going to be so many eyes on this release. I mean, the amount of press that a 4.0 release will get, and maybe I'm in the Star Citizen bubble and I'm paying too much attention to it, maybe. But I'm thinking of other publications, massively OP, IGN, Kotaku, plenty of places that people will say, oh, you don't care about their opinions. Who cares? It doesn't matter if you care about their opinions or not. They have megaphones, and those megaphones talk to people, and those people go and search on YouTube, and they find more stuff out, and they talk about it word of mouth. It's big. And of the amount, like over time, it's almost impossible to have covered Star Citizen and not heard about 4.0. So when it does come out, I feel like it will be covered almost like a game, at least going to early access. You know, obviously we know it's not the equivalent, but the amount of press that it will get is going to be gargantuan. The biggest press probably this game will have gotten so far in its lifetime. And I feel like they really need to, they can't make it perfect, but it needs to be good enough that it actually speaks for the name of the game. It actually comes out and says, yes, we've been working on this and this is why. Like you can actually see a step up in the game here. And I know that's some hopium speak, but that's just the way I see it. And if they don't hit something like that, then it's not a great look. They've got to at least bump up the player count and stability.
Okay, but like, what about if it comes out and you still have T-posing AI and the the other problems still happen, but missions aren't working properly or anything else like that? Because like we've always had those, and I don't see those being perfect. Like,
no, I don't think they'll be perfect. But you should be able to see AI walk around and do stuff. Like it should look like a functioning game. And I know, again, crazy to say for a patch. Like normally you'd think 4.0.1 would be that kind of a patch, but this is just how I like. This is what I would be thinking if I was at the company. Like we gotta nail this. Morph, what do you think?
I think looking at the history of Star Citizen, and even what Richard Tyre said himself, if you give a team 4 weeks to do something, it'll take 4 weeks to do something. So if they're saying it's Q4, it's probably going to come out at the end of Q4. They're going to take the time that they have to release it at the very end and try to do as much as they can to fix issues with it before it goes live. So it will come out, if anything, at the very soonest, probably at the end of Q4, right before they go to holiday. And if it comes out, my guess is it's going to be in PTU and not in live. My hope is that we're going to get a PTU test of it much sooner than that, because I think it needs that time to test. Like they already talked about doing a preview channel of 1,000 people. I'd be really interested if after they do that test, because I'm assuming this is going to be in Stanton and not in Pyro, if they could then shift to adapting that new net coding to the Pyro build and delivering a Pyro build earlier to start testing that technology leading up till the end of the year. I think that would be the smart way to do it, to get rid of the issues if possible, and it would give them more certainty on being able to deliver it sooner rather than later. I mean, only they can make that decision. I'm not there. I don't know what the issues are, what the technical limitations are that will restrict them from doing so, but that would be my hope. So I'm not like 100% pessimistic. I'm not going full Star Citizen refunds Reddit, but I'm skeptical that we're going to see a live release. I'm 99% sure we won't see a live release in 2024. PTU, I think there's still a good possibility. I'm hoping it's sooner. I'm trying to be optimistic it'll be sooner than, SitCon, but I don't know. I mean, I think it's going to happen what's going to happen from their point of view. And I agree. If they don't put anything out before SitCon, it's going to be really tough to build any kind of real hype around it, because every single article that would usually talk about what happens in CitizenCon, that's not the niche smaller group of creators like us who actually have reach to gamers outside that become new backers, are probably going to contextualize with what's said at CitizenCon that, oh, by the way, most of the things they talked about last year didn't actually make it in, and 4.0 got delayed. It's going to be a caveat in all those articles. And like I've been saying, it's really important to try to get new backers in, because that's how the project is going to survive long term. And we've been seeing that decline. Existing backers are making up the difference in funding this year, as Paul already pointed out. It's passing last year, but backers are still down by half. So it's not sustainable that fewer people are spending more money. In my view, I don't think it's a good thing to rely on.
I know it's not my podcast, but I have to have a follow-on question.
Okay, so go ahead, please.
So what's what's the gap of being able to launch 4.0 and PTU but not the live? Like, what would be the reason? And if I missed it, or a recap would be nice. But I'm just curious. So you're saying that it's possible for the PTU, but you're 99% sure it wouldn't go into the live. What would be the one or two things that CIG would fail on that wouldn't get it to the live?
Well, I mean, I think it's server meshing. I think what we've seen from the last two technologies that have led up to server meshing, which have been absolutely important technologies, the persistent entity streaming technology, and now this rework of the inventory system, is that these big changes to technology are way more complex when you implement them at scale than they originally thought. And it seems like server meshing, from everything they've said, is like the biggest, most complex technology they have ever introduced at one time, and it is 100% going to break in multiple ways that they don't even know how. They don't know how it's going to break, but it's going to break. So I think it's safe to assume that they're going to need time to fix whatever issues break at scale. I mean, we still, in none of the tests that we've had, including in the upcoming test, I'm assuming they still haven't fixed the server, wrote the code yet for missions to be able to transfer across server borders. So like there's a lot of little technologies that are probably going to have issues communicating with the back end and working for transferring across borders that they're going to have to figure out. And I think we have to assume it's going to take at least 3 months in PTU, maybe longer to test. It could take 6 months in PTU for them to test this and get it fixed.
Good.
Yeah.
And
I've always seen. Sorry, go ahead, Tomorrow.
No, you go ahead.
Okay. I've always seen, like, it was the persistent entity streaming, and then the one after that would be your server meshing. It would be like that patch that comes out and just completely destroys the game for, like, a couple of months or something like that. Mm-hmm. I want to be optimistic, but I think that's pretty much inevitable, right? We don't know how these things are going to scale. That jump from like Evo to PTU to live, it's probably going to be very, very tumultuous. Tomato, you were saying that you would like to believe it's this massive Jesus patch that's coming out, and it's this make or break patch, right? So why would the public, or why would your mainstream people who are like on the sidelines consider 4.0 any differently than like a 3.24? You know what I'm saying? It's not like IGN's going to start reviewing Star Citizen once 4.0 drops. You know what I'm saying? I think it still comes across largely as, it's just another Star Citizen patch. This one's a biggie though, because it's got some new tech, but I don't think it's the patch that truly opens the floodgates and like brings this game's attention to the mainstream in orders of magnitude more than what it is now, right? I think that's reserved for your Squadron 42 release, and then that's your gateway to like a 1.0 release eventually, maybe next couple of years or whatever that is.
That is true, but like I was saying before, it depends on how much attention you've been paying, because a lot of what they have said in the past, and even just now this last week with what Benoit said over the Star Citizen Live, a lot of what they said is stuff that has been behind server meshing. Not only that, this is their first star system, or their second star system in 14 years. Like it still takes, it has enough going on that it seems like a milestone. And it is one of the most critical things that people will say about this game is all this development, and they've only had one star system. Suddenly they add a second star system. People are going to be like, oh, okay, so are they actually expanding? Is it actually good?
That's the headline. A new Star Citizen finally adds new second system. It doesn't matter if they're going to be cynical about it. It doesn't matter if it's this cynical and that kind of stuff. It's that they spelled the name right. Like as long as they spell the name right, it's advertising, and CIG will get people who are like curious to watch the bonfire, and of those people, many of them will be, hey, this looks cool. I'm going to hop in.
Every single one of those headlines is going to be Star System after 14 years finally releases new Star System, and then there's going to be 30 variations of after but, you know what I mean?
Yeah. But imagine if there isn't a but. What if it actually runs good? And I'm not saying I think it will, but I think there is a massive sliding scale on how well they launch this patch that can make a big difference to a lot of people looking at it.
Yeah. I believe that CIG are capable of surprising us. I don't think it's impossible, right? That things go smoothly and it's, you know, like it's just improbable. I would like to be proven wrong, but just historically speaking, and just the gravitas of this tech is just, it's so insane. Like it's never been done before, et cetera, et cetera. I'm just along for the ride, man. I can't wait to see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
I will say it's been done in other applications, and I think that's...
But with this level of fidelity, bro, that's
immersion. Yeah, no, I mean, there's all kinds of caveats to add to it, and I think that one of the things that actually saves them a bit is that this isn't some like random technology that they've invented that nobody knows if it'll work. It has worked in certain applications, but I do think that, again, going back just how much attention you've paid to the project, it comes off a bit as the Jesus tech kind of thing. Like,
I hate
it's
that.
not going to happen.
I hate that term.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. 4.0 isn't going to fix everything, but it is the introduction of that last milestone that they've always said they had to get to actually creating content for this game, and obviously the other one being Squadron 42.
Yeah, I mean, it's the technology required to make Star Citizen a MMO, a massively online multiplayer game. It was, without it, we wouldn't have it. I mean, 100 players in a server is still pretty tiny for how big a system is.
Yeah.
So it's a big deal. I think a lot of people, I think the gaming community in general are more technically savvy than they've ever been in the past, and a lot of people now understand what server meshing is and what it does for a game. And we'll be interested in testing Star Citizen just to see whether or not it fails. I think there's going to be a lot of people who will look at it just to try to watch the fire if there's going to be a fire.
Yeah, it's always fun to watch a train wreck, not a real train wreck. That's terrible.
That's how CIG has grown in the past. It's like yeah, people will always you can't control the media narrative of what's going to happen, but you can just do what you can to do what you need to and getting those headlines. As long as people are trying your game and finding it enjoyable enough, you'll get new backers, you'll get money. It's like the media is going to say whatever it wants to say, but by doing so, they're giving you free advertising. And so no matter what, I think you'll get more people as long as it's decent enough. You know,
I also feel like we're putting too much.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I also feel like we're putting too much stock in like IGN and some of this media that was once popular. But like when Osmond Gold took the future of gaming video that Star Citizen produced during CitizenCon, when he took that and watched it and reacted to it, the amount of hype that just came from a content creator's page like Osmond Gold, I think that is like the future of marketing, not IGN, not these reports that are.
I agree with you. No, I agree with you. I think new media is more relevant, but new media still reacts to old media as a basis for their reaction videos. So Osmond Gold often reads a lot of these print stuff and then makes a bigger video than that content ever had reach to get. True, 100%.
Yeah. It's a mixed bag, definitely.
I still feel like, I mean, IGN, I agree, man. It's legacy stuff. It's going the way of the dinosaur, and it should. I think it's cropped. I've got the political issues aside and stuff like this, but the amount, like, look at something like the launch of a game like a Diablo 4 or back in the day Diablo 3 or something like this. That type of marketing reaches so much more people. Your absolute normies of the normies who have, they're, oh, that looks kind of cool. I'll probably play that. I think that Squadron 42 is that game that they will market in that way once it gets released, right? And then you'll start, that, and that's what I mean by the floodgates. It's not just the guys who are kind of casually aware, or your core of backers who have all pledged to the game in some way. And I mean, what, 90%, 80%, 75% of these people probably don't even log into the game. They'll maybe log in once a week when there's a new patch and then come back later, and they're just waiting for that big tech patch or that big release. I think there's a massive population that have not even heard of the game yet. They've got no clue what this thing is because of the way that this project originated and the genesis of the crowdfunding and how it's all come to pass, right? They do have their YouTube ads and stuff like this that play, but they've never really made a concerted effort to truly talk to that level of demographic that they could, if they put the money towards, to do it, right? And that now you're talking about your Diablo 4 levels of like hype and levels of purchases and stuff like that. I think that's still a ways to come.
Yeah, I think you guys are both, you make good points. It's not all about the print publications for this kind of stuff, but that is the kind of stuff that'll pop up on like your news app or just randomly show up on some like open Chrome browser when you just pop something, you just press the button and it brings up all those random articles. But there's a lot to be said, about like reaction news, about the big streamers who are covering stuff and how much of a megaphone they have. So I agree with you there. Let's talk about, though, kind of, I think this is a big sticking point for a lot of people. The basics of the game, at least the things that feel like the basics, your cargo interaction, your flight model, death mechanics, stuff like that, still seems to be getting figured out. 12 months into development, does that seem acceptable to you guys?
12 months, 12 years.
12 years.
12 years.
Sorry. Yeah. No, so we just started Star Citizen last year, of course, 12 months.
For the scale of what they're doing and what they've done and the fact they're making 2 games, yeah. I mean, talking about bombing of the bombs, what was it? Concord? It was in development for 8 years. And it was pulled in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And then there are games. There are other games out there that recently that take 8 to 10 years. That's just the new standard for games these days. I was saying it back when games. Like good games, just any game really, like any big ambitious game or any game that requires a lot of, especially online play and stuff like that. They're gonna require you to go 8 to 10 years minimum. And I was saying that back in like 2015, 2016, people said, no, it's actually 4 years. It's like, yeah, it was 4 years in the 2010s or like at the beginning of 2010s and the time when I was, in my teens and 20s. Yeah, it was definitely the standard in like between 2000 and 2010 was like 4 to 6 years. But the things have gotten more complex. They've gotten more expensive. You need larger teams. You require a lot more complex. Like just the textures alone sometimes can cost a lot of like memory space. It just takes a long time to make a game at the scale of Star Citizen and Squadron. In fact, they're making 2 games, like cannibalizing each other because they're making one game that they're going to split into 2 is even more complicated. So yeah, 12 years is. I think it's understandable. I think the problem is we should have had more advancement in 12 years. It's that the development scale, like we've got advancement and it's understandable it's been 12 years. But I think a lot of people are upset that it's taken 12 years and this is where we're at. If it was 12 years and we had multiple systems in, but it wasn't quite done yet, people have been like, I'm having fun. And I think some people are like that right now. Like, I'm having fun. I don't really mind that so much. But
it's like, can you imagine if like Rockstar as we know today didn't exist and Red Dead Redemption 2 or that game was like crowdfunded, right? And it had transparent development over its 7 to 8 to 10 years of however RDR2 was in for development for. And then they had like, inside Red Deads of how they're developing technology to dynamically shrink horse testicles when the horses are in the snow, right?
Yeah.
There would be some form of like, why are you guys working on this? Why aren't you working on the
that would have driven people crazy.
You see what I'm saying? It's like we don't know what goes on behind closed doors in established studios, right? And we see Star Citizen sort of going and creeping along as it does, and it's you're gonna get controversy when things are portrayed in this way. But is it? I mean, it's. Obviously, they've made mistakes along the way. But to touch on Tomato's actual question, right, about like, I see this as like, is it a top-down design or a down-up design, right? It's like, if you look at something like Cyberpunk 2077 City, did they go and design the city around the potential gameplay, or did they design the potential gameplay once the city was built and then found pockets of places to put gameplay into? right? And this is kind of how I see Star Citizen. They're just like, because of the sandbox nature that they want to have, they have all these like massive sprawling spaces, but still to this day, there's so much untapped potential with the scenarios and the things that they could do to put players in these positions where fun, impactful, and meaningful gameplay takes place. That's where I feel concerned, right? It's not really with, I feel like they've got enough of a big open play space to figure these mechanics out and make things work a certain way, with time and iteration. But what blows my mind is like, where is the they just haven't tapped into the potential of what these have you ever flown down onto like one of the random moons and found a location or a beach or a something like I think it was actually in Pyro. We were assaulting like one of these bases. There was like an NPC mission or something to do there, and we all got on dragonflies and we flew over the ocean to approach this place. And it was like, it was so Star Wars, man. It was so cool. But we were doing this out of our own volition. There was no guidance or like true reason to do it this way. And I just ever since that happened, I just felt like there are so many locations in this game that they're not realizing their potential at, right? And then we had this recent thing with the Pyro mission locations, and they had that big NPC, and they're talking about the AI and the types of missions you'll have in Pyro. That makes me concerned in terms that it feels very, again, like tone deaf or disconnected, because A2 bombings are a thing, and they've gone and made these intricately designed and fantastic play spaces with FPS gameplay in mind. But some dude in an A2 or an A1 is just going to come and clean that place up, and you're never going to get that intended experience, right? And it just leads on to more and more sort of questions on like, how do you guys really see this stuff taking place? How do you put players in these situations consistently that makes them click with the project and go, oh my God, I get this game now. This is why this game is so incredible. You know what I'm saying?
I think you make a good point, especially with Rockstar, considering GTA 6 has probably been in development for a very long time. Yeah, and along with GTA Online being partnered up with that, they like if they had open development on GTA, it would probably be every single month there'd be some kind of controversy about a decision they were making or things that they were doing. You see when the leaks come out, people lose their minds.
I was gonna say, do you remember the leaks when they leaked GTA 6 initially, and everyone thought it was like, they thought it was gonna be awful because it's like, this is almost done. This is like graphical downgrade and all these other things. Like they were like losing their minds about it, and it's like, oh yeah, first time for you folks,
And we know that we don't know, but we've seen that they filed their own patent for something similar to server meshing. So they're also on a bit of a similar development path to something like Star Citizen and Squadron 42's combination. Now Rockstar is, they've earned their name. Like, they have put out some amazing games, and they've been in the business for a long time. They've developed their engine, they've made their studios, all this stuff that CIG has been doing over the last 12 years, but nothing ever can compare quite the same in the gaming industry. But it's interesting to see how some of that stuff is very similar, and I would be really interested to see what we could know from GTA if it was developed in open. Sulyce, what's your take?
Yeah. I feel Morph, I'm going to pivot over to you. I want to hear your thoughts first because I think I'm about to disrupt the podcast. Morph, go ahead. I'm going to Heisman this one.
Let's go back to the question.
Yeah, so basically just that there are a lot of what people might consider to be the basics of this game. It's a space sim, the flight model, all that kind of stuff.
I think
don't
a lot
say the
of
two magic words. I don't want those comments.
I was about to.
A lot of good things have been said so far, but I agree. But Star Citizen is developed differently than other games. The way that it's been funded has necessitated them putting the cart before the horse. Quite literally, the cart in this case is a ship. There's so many things that they have to do in this game that are atypical, that create problems. But by the same token, it wouldn't exist if they didn't do it that way. It's kind of a frustrating problem to have. So I would be surprised and even a little bit worried if they weren't still reworking stuff now, because clearly they need to do it. I mean, the A2 problem is just one example of, designing a ship to do a thing and not really thinking about the consequences because you need to pay the bills. It's a cool ship to have, and I think it could have a place, but clearly, like, balance and needs to be thought critically about when it comes to making gameplay spaces fun. And it could be done in a way that's engaging and fun for everybody, but it's clearly not there yet. There's a lot of systems like that. You look at like master modes, but virtually all the ships have issues like this too. I mean, just look at ship design. I look at ship design so often, and I notice these things. I mean, the tractor beams are a great another example of putting the cart before the horse. You design all these ships with this text that says, "Hey, it's going to have tractor beams." Our team does a great job concepting it. They don't really know how tractor beams are going to work. Nobody knows how tractor beams are going to work. All right, here's how they work. Shit. Okay, it doesn't really work anymore, does it? You try to use a tractor beam on the cat, and it's so weird.
Yeah.
You try to use it on the C1. It's so weird. Like there's so many weird things with tractor beams, and some ships that should have tractor beams that don't. Like the raft. Like what's going on with that? The ship that was built for the cargo update originally. That ship was supposed to come out with the cargo update originally. That's when it was supposed to come out. Like way back
like
when
2022.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I don't think people should be, shocked. I think they need to welcome the rebalancing of things, and it needs to be an ongoing process, because as they continue to add things, it's going to continue to disrupt and break things. And certainly the way things are right now, I hope that the finished Star Citizen doesn't look this way, because there are certainly a lot of issues. I mean, I like to go back to PlanetSide 2. Is there like a great balancing example? There was a huge issue. If anybody's played PlanetSide 2, air was super powerful, and it still is super powerful if you play the game now. In order to address the issue, eventually they went around to designing the bases around the idea that there'd be areas for vehicles to interact with, and there'd be areas for FPS combat, so that different types of players had places to engage in different phases of combat. And it made for a really fun and interesting gameplay experience that everybody enjoyed. The air combat players are enjoying it. The tank guys are enjoying it. The ground guys are enjoying it. Nobody feels like their gameplay sucks now because of these changes. But then, the rebalancing needs to happen. So anyway, that's my thought.
No, I appreciate Morph going. I wanted to hear Morph's first before I kind of derail. So here's my issue with Star Citizen.
An essay.
And you could say, So you can, a thesis by Sulyce. You could talk feature creep. You can throw all those hyperbolic phrases out there, but I think for me, it's minimum viable product. CIG does not understand what their minimum viable product is to go live. And I think that gets trickled down all the way to the game loops. And when I look at a game loop like delivery, not cargo hauling, but delivery, they've established this minimum viable product that can prove the use case works, and then they abandon it. There's no scaling, there's no new locations, there's no diversity. It's the same damn mission over and over and over again. Maybe instead of 6 locations, now it's 10 locations, but it's the same thing. I feel like bounty hunting. You have the Vaughn missions that throw a curveball in there, but bounty hunting, salvaging, they establish this like bar of, passability. And once they're there, they move on. And so for me, 12 years into the future, right? Yes, you can argue COVID had an impact. So you take away 2 years. You can argue that the tech changes, like it's like developing for an Xbox 360, but then having to change development for an Xbox One, right? Like you have to change the coding. You have to change as tech changes over a decade. Like all of this is debatable and worth a really good conversation and a deep dive. But what I can't get over, even as a content creator for the game, what I can't get over is the mundane, like monotonous of the game loops. That I can't excuse. I can't say after 12 years that we're in the same place. Delivery missions haven't been touched. And that's like a thing for me. I can't get over delivery missions. But I don't know. I think to sum it all up, like we need to know. Maybe we don't need to. I would like to know what the minimum viable product is for us to go live. What is the end state visions for these game loops? Can we have more diversity across Stanton? I don't know. And that growth just hasn't happened for me. And so that's where I struggle with this question, is I can understand most of it. I don't understand the staleness of some of the game loops.
I think a lot of people would, just from being in this community and seeing what general reactions come back from certain statements, a lot of people would point to it being in the alpha phase and say, well, it's the beta phase where the content gets built out and that diversity comes around. But as we've all kind of touched on throughout this conversation, this game is being developed a little bit different than a lot of games, or what might be traditional, or what even we would understand as outside viewers. If somebody were to say that, let's see, I'm saying that, would you say that it doesn't matter? Like, they need to be viewing this part as both their alpha and beta phase. They need to be making this more diverse in content right now because that's where we are, and that's how people are playing this game. Or do you still understand or rather, I guess, accept the idea of them trying to expand on that later on down the line?
It depends on how much you believe in Star Citizen's messaging. And if we go back from an hour and a half ago, right? If you go on to robertspaceindustriescom, the game's live. It's play now. It's marketed as live. It's a live PU, right? The only thing alpha in the game is the UEC, AUEC. Everything else is live PU. And so if you're going to market, Citizen Con, play now, right? If you're going to market and have these external facing products that say live, I'm of the opinion that we don't go into a beta. I'm of the opinion we go straight from what we're doing now into 1.0. I don't think a beta is in our future, because we've surpassed the true definitions of alpha. Alpha testing is a small sample space, right, with a very, very, very minimum product. Beta, you just open up to more people. Well, everybody can play this game. There is no gating of who can play Star Citizen. So alpha, beta, throw it out. I don't think those terms apply to Star Citizen. I think we're in a testing phase, and you can play. It's open testing. You can play if you want to, but for all external purposes, this is marketed as a live game.
Okay. Anybody else have something to add to that?
He's right. The CIG themselves is marketed as a live game. It's probably the most infuriating part is that CIG will go, we'll go play now, and then when everyone says it's broken, they go, well, the live is also a testing experience. It's like, you can't do both things. You can't both have a cake and then eat the cake and expect that cake to be there. That's literally the whole, can I have my cake and eat it too? That's the idea.
In a way, that's what they've successfully accomplished. That's what they're doing.
And it's also the reason why people are mad at them.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing.
No, but people can be mad all they want, right? Like nothing changes from a CIG perspective. They don't really, as a company, they don't really care how mad backers get, right? It's like, but no one really cares.
Their engagement is down.
At the end of the day, I mean, we were talking about the marketing, right? It's like their communication. If they communicate negative things, money probably goes down. If they communicate positive things and build hype, money goes up, right? They just got to keep on doing what they're doing. And it's I believe that people have their own agency and can decide, cool, I've had enough of this shit. I'll come back later, or I'm never coming back. I'm going to sell my account or whatever. Or they're just like, okay, I see the potential and I'll hang around. I'll cautiously sort of, watch from the sidelines.
I think they do have a big problem with playable now and not actually being all that playable in some ways.
It's disingenuous, sure, but at the end of the day, I think people are capable of making their own decisions and like figuring out if they want to put thousands of dollars into this game, right?
Absolutely. I think that the best we could hope for, and I don't think this is really cost effective for them, would be to always have the PTU running in a more experimental way that allows people to experience the most recent patch, but then have the live servers be something that's more stable. And honestly, I don't think they've had that capability until after server meshing, because it's always been their backend that's made it less stable and less capable of running like a real game. But the best of both worlds, or the best model I think they could have, would be something like that. And that's what a game like Satisfactory does, where they have their experimental branch where you could play with all the newest stuff, and then they have their regular alpha or beta branch. I don't know even what they're at right now, but they have their regular game that you could play that basically plays like a finished game. And that's one of the things that I have my opinion gated on based on 4.0, or rather 4.0, 4.1, 4.2, however many of those patches they need. And I think it might be like the 3 patches after 4.0 to get to that stable point where you can be like, okay, we have this stable live server that you guys can come in and play Star Citizen for what we think it would be. And then we also have the PTU, which is like the newer stuff that's going on. And like I said, that might not be cost effective for them, but I think that would help them a lot.
Yeah, I don't want to come across as like being too on the one side in that regard, because I mean, I do think they do need to be held responsible, right? Like it comes across as like borderline ridiculous, the stunts that they've pulled over the years, right? But at the end of the day, people need to make their decisions.
Yeah, I think it really depends on what CIG wants to do. Is CIG making a video game, or are they making a money delivery service?
Exactly.
And
is this a game or is it a storefront?
yeah, and the criticism that people level at this is, hey, store citizen is legitimate, because at a certain point, like, you need to have a game, and you can only sell hopes and dreams and promises for so long before you're going to have to put up. And so, yeah, it's worked for CIG thus far, but it's not going to work forever. And I think just in general, as people, like, I think all of us do, we want to play a video game. we all back to play games and to enjoy ourselves. And I think the to enjoy a video game that we all backed and do content for, we would like for CIG to start focusing on that rather than everything else it seems to be focusing on. And so the sort of messaging, as we've been hitting a lot, is very important, and they're bad at messaging for those sorts of things. So what I'm saying is they need to stop hiding. They need to stop pretending that one thing. They need to, when they say live is also a testing environment, is an excuse. It's a bad excuse, and it makes them look bad and worse, and it's not going to help them with. It's been more important pointed out. They're like their new backer engagement is incredibly, like, just below. It's I would wonder if it's even close to the numbers it was what in previous Augusts. How bad is it? I wouldn't be surprised if it was like one of the worst years for CIG's new backer kind of engagement. I'd have to look that up, because I don't know the numbers on my, but that fact that it's like half of what it was last year in August, and August wasn't a really big month last year for Star Citizen, is pretty telling. So it's like, yeah, it's working, but how long will it work? And I'd rather them make that pivot now. So, but you're right, Void, you're entirely right. Like it's working thus far, and I think that's my biggest complaint about CIG is, like, it works, so we'll just keep doing it. It's like sometimes you need to learn this is a mistake and pivot, and if you don't pivot properly, you just stuck in this "it always worked before" kind of mentality, especially with 12 years of people working there. So,
Yeah.
Last thing. Oh, go ahead.
I just wanted to touch on the issue of them developing something and then leaving it, and then that loop being just monotonous and boring for years and years and years. The bunkers being an excellent example. I agree with you, but I think the source of that issue is probably them developing Squadron 42 and having most resources on that. I see is that being the primary problem with that. So what I'd hope to see, I mean, that's my guess, but we'll have to see. Like, I hope that them shifting over when they actually do it, because I'm not convinced they've done that yet. Actually, I think they probably are mostly working on Squadron, and that's the reason why we've not seen the acceleration that I expected. But when they do shift over, I would hope that they would use those resources to then continue iterating on some of those features they've already established and make them much more interesting. Like, to this day, the only thing that seems to be the most developed is mining, and nothing else really. I guess spaceflight kind of, but that's just been reworked. So I guess that's going over again and redone. So anyway,
that's fair.
Mm-hmm.
Last thing I wanted to touch on was the higher complexities in some parts of the game that we're seeing. Obviously, there are some places where things are a little more simplified. I fully understand that. I know we're going to see that in the comments, but there are also places like the physicalized cargo, engineering, life support, control surfaces. These are things that people are calling out as being too much, right? They're bringing in too much complexity. They seem like they are new ideas that they're just trying to make it be more like a second job, and nobody wants them. Do you think that these are actually in danger of scaring players away from the game?
I don't think so. Actually, because it's still a design, it's still a work in progress. I think it's too early to say whether or not it will. I think there's a potential for it to, but I think CIG has also shown that they're not above bringing back and reworking a big feature if it's not particularly like they imagine. I think the new inventory screens are a really good example of it. I personally didn't think that they were particularly well done. There's a lot of friction with them. It added a lot of additional complexity to a system that in any other game is accessed by pressing I. You know, it's cool that it's a localized system. There are reasons for it in the design of Star Citizen. There's niche issues with having an inventory system that's accessible anywhere, like Jump Town, just looting stuff to an inventory that nobody can see and can access, so you can't be looted anymore. You can't get your stuff back, right? That's one of those examples. But clearly something wasn't working, and they were okay with going in and reworking that, making that a bit more streamlined. So I'm not super concerned with stuff being too complex. Let's see what it looks like. If it is too complex, let's complain, and hopefully they'll fix it. Let's give them some feedback on it. But I think one of the things that is attractive about Star Citizen is that it's trying to do so much. It's trying to kind of be a bit of an everything game that everyone kind of hopes and imagines new games coming out is going to be. They hype it up, and it doesn't end up being what they expect. I think Star Citizen's trying to be what people expect. It's just it turns out that it's insanely expensive and time consuming to get there.
Yeah.
I was saying imagine. Whenever I hear that word, that's all I can think of is imagine.
Yes.
But I mean, this is also it can be problematic, right? Because a thing that is for everyone is kind of becomes a thing for no one, right? So it's like they do need to have their focus and their they need to understand what this game is primarily, right? And how the biggest thing is like how certain systems interact with one another, and that's what we've been dealing with for the last literally since 3.0 dropped. Is you've got all these features that are just so disparate from one another. In isolation, cool, it's a thing that works, and it's like the copions are a great example. I've spoken about this often before. It's like, cool, we've got these new copion type things, but this doesn't engage or interact with or cross-pollinate with any other system in the game. It's just another isolated pocket, right? And they even went on record saying this. I think it was the guy who's in charge of the Squadron 42 at the moment. He went on record saying this. And Tara, that's it. And and just to hear them be so self-aware of this is already, it's like that's a positive in my book. It's like, cool, just give them the time, start linking all these things together, and hopefully soon we'll have a game, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the question about like they don't, like you're saying that they don't even know what they want as a minimal viable product. I feel like 1.0 is supposed to be that. At least that's what I'm hoping 1.0 is. Yeah. And I'm hoping at CitizenCon they qualify what 1.0 is. They say, well, these are the things that we want to do for a minimum viable product. We're gonna have this many star systems. We're gonna have this many gameplay loops. They're going to be, like, what is it going to be? That's what I want to know. I'm hoping that'll be the thing that helps us understand their vision a little bit more clearly.
Yeah. So for me, it's a few things. It's one, I think Voidude, you're kind of leaning into it, but Star Citizen finding its identity. Like, are we a simulation, or are we a first person shooter, or are we, flight sim? Like what is this? And it plays into the minimum viable product and that conversation as well. But if you're pushing the narrative that this is living in space, I welcome it. Like, let's make it as complex as possible. It's actually fun. It's something that no other game is doing. So this infamous thing that Morphologis brought up, the hitting the eye for your inventory, yeah, that's very not Star Citizen. Star Citizen has always kind of preached this like realistic approach to future living, which is whatever. You can argue that. But going to a kiosk, which there are many everywhere in the space station, but having to go to the kiosk to access your inventory, I know you can argue that that's too much. So I think there's that argument is, what are we? If we're a simulation trying to make this as realistic in 2954 as possible, okay, I actually support what they're trying to do. Then the other part of it, though, is, everybody wants to be the main character syndrome, right? Everybody wants to fly the Idris. Everybody wants to fly the Javelin. So requiring,
I don't want to fly.
You don't want to
be true. No,
I don't either.
Yeah, well, so let me clarify. Not everybody, right? Like, most people are getting into the game so that they can fly in ace combat and do everything. So this expectation that in order to fly a Javelin or in order to fly an Idris, you need 10, 15 people running engineering to put out fires. I think that is where you're going to start to kind of address your question directly. I think that's where you're going to start seeing mechanisms, game loops, maybe interest in the game falling apart. Like sometimes people just want to exist. They want to take their org of 80 people and exist in a javelin. But if I have to worry about changing batteries and then I need to go into how many different kiosks to make sure, things are fine and not on fire, I think that's where the complexity can start degrading the quality of the experience.
I'd be interested in seeing more of that, and I think that goes towards what the game is trying to offer. It's gotten so big that it does need to market itself to a larger group of people, and there's a smaller group of people that I think really love that idea, and that's mainly the people who joined in this project pretty early. But as it's gotten bigger and bigger, and it needs to continue to bring in funding, it does need to try and make game systems that can appeal to more people. And I can see how that would butt up against that expectation a little bit. But at the same time, I think that's a very important part of the game to make sure exists. And I guess the best way, I'm not a game developer, the best way it feels like to go about that is to make sure that the people who are doing that stuff, who abide by that kind of thought philosophy when it comes to big ships per se, is to give them buffs rather than to nerf it to the point where it can't be done. But then you run into the idea of, well, are you paying to play? By paying to get bigger ships and you can control it on your own. There's a lot in the game's philosophy that comes up in that conversation.
Yeah, I very much agree with what Sulyce is touching on there. It's like this is the genesis of like the entitlement that I see from my perspective as doing a lot of PvP and piracy in this community, right? It's like they've sold the idea of being the Captain Picard or the Captain Kirk or the Han Solo flying around in your spaceship, right? And it's kind of like would that work if they didn't go and say, oh, cool, AI blades, you could totally solo this thing with, I don't know if they've ever outwardly stated this, but it's like the idea of these AI blades and having NPCs crew your ship for you, right? Does that kind of thing just evolve alongside setting that dream so that everybody buys their own ship and not just like one guy between his 5 friends? You know what I mean? It's like it translates to more sales in a way, kind of a thing. But what I disagree with is like, it is fun to just exist on your Javelin, but having gameplay that is not just tedium in managing and maintaining and multi-crewing this vessel over a long period of time, that would be for me the exciting like problem that CIG has to solve, right? That for me is like the super exciting thing. It's like how do you make these, just managing and maintaining and flying your ship around from A to B and operating in whatever capacity your org wants to operate in? How do you make that engaging, fun, and not tedious and not repetitive and this type of thing, right? I'm optimistic that they'll get there. As more and more of these features start linking into one another and just the act of operating your interest is like, okay, cool, we've got a really low on resource X. It means we need to go to this system and we need to do these things to supply up, and the adventure you'll have just trying to accomplish this one thing with all the side tracking potential, in a 1.0 or beyond 1.0 world. That's why I'm here, man. I think there's just infinite amounts of potential for good gameplay and meaningful fun experiences to be had with all that emergent sort of gameplay taking place around you.
Yeah.
Too much copium. Sorry, guys.
I mean, no, I'm gonna just dump a pile of copium for you to mainline right here, there, Voy. some hopium here. CIG is not unique. There are companies and games that have made multi-crew gameplay for years now and fun. The whole concept of like Pulsar, The Lost Colony. Like I've played that game with friends. That game is amazing with friends. And I got to a point with one run with friends where there was like we were streaming it. It was a bunch of streamers hanging out doing it together. We did it for like every day, like every Wednesday for like 2 months. And by the end of that month, I was the captain, and we would reach an enemy. I'd immediately say there's an enemy there. Within 3 seconds, that thing would be dead because the scientists would upload the viruses to destroy up their shields. The pilot would then move so that they could get a good position for the gunner to fire. The gunner would know exactly when to fire and exactly what the cycle rate of the firing. And before that ship even knew we were there, it was already on fire, and within a couple branches was dead. And it was such a good experience as like when those things start rolling. And I think that's where the fun will start rolling in with these things. I do think legitimately there would be people, as long as the gameplay is fun, someone running around with a beam gun going, I heal everything. I heal the I speak to the machine spirit, and it I will soothe the machine spirit. Throw the oils, you know. And there are going to be enough of those people who are also interested in like engineering and like combat and all these other sorts of things.
Dude, if I had my way, Star Citizen would be free to play, but then you just don't have a ship. You can log in. Anybody can log in and play the game, but you just don't have a ship.
Yeah. I do think there's a lot of people out there who just don't want the stress.
Absolutely.
You know, I think there's plenty of people who want to be Captain Picard, but there's plenty of people who are just like, I don't want to be a leader.
People just want to live in space.
We were doing Jumptown the other day, and you know, there were guys in Jumptown busy moving boxes. I mean, they worked for like one night. It was kind of, you know, anticlimactic. But we had a guy, and I was like, okay, who wants to like swap? You guys have been moving boxes for the whole time. Who wants to get in the, you know, fly the Corsair, fly the prize ship? And he was like, no, man, that's too much pressure, bro. I'm happy just moving boxes, you know?
Yeah. Have you guys ever played EVE Online? Has anyone here played EVE?
I've played it, yeah.
I played a little bit. But yeah.
It's a pretty complex game, right? There's a lot of stuff to it. And I think, you know, the hero syndrome, people might come in thinking they want to be the wing leader, but actually being the wing leader, I think a lot of people find out is actually very stressful and hard. And sometimes it's just fun to be somebody who's doing the tackling or doing the, you know, like doing some of the other a piece of the puzzle of the large group. And it's still really fun and engaging because, you know, you're seeing the results of everyone working together. And there's something really compelling about working together as a team to do something. So it just depends on how they make these systems work. I think there's definitely a possibility of them not doing it well enough, making it too complex and not that interesting. So it's a detriment to the experience. But I mean, it all comes down to how it's designed. I like to think of like that Microsoft Pirates game. What is it called?
Sid Meier's Pirates?
No. The more crap.
Sea of Thieves. Sea of Thieves.
Sea of Thieves. Yeah, sorry, Sea of Thieves. I played that game before. I actually quite enjoyed it. The mechanics are very simple for repairing your ship, but if you've played it, it gets super hectic still. Like, oh, there's a hole, you gotta go patch it. Oh, we still gotta shoot that other team because they're shooting at us. You know, like they're all ultimately very simplified systems. They're not like reprogramming the computer on your whatever. It's not something that complex, but it still becomes engaging and fun. And I think that's the kind of system that I hope CIG can model after. Is it doesn't have to be complex. It just needs to be something that you have to do, and there needs to be a diverse array of things to do to keep it feeling fresh and interesting as you play the game.
But then it also needs depth, right? Like I agree with you 100% on Sea of Thieves. Arguably just slightly too simple. And don't get me wrong,
I appreciate. Obviously, I agree.
Yeah, and I think that game just lacked so much depth for me, right? I even played it with my son a couple of times. Like I really tried. That game it never clicked with me, right? And it apparently is a joy. And I get people telling me to play it all the time. It would be right up my alley, but it never clicked with me.
But I was to kind of fully answer the question. I think CIG will do a good job of, because they've showed this in the past, and this has happened before. Things like hover mode and stuff like that, where they want to try to push it as far as they can go with like simulation, and then pull it back to fun to a degree, because they also have to play their game. I think there are definitely some ways that they could fall over that, but I think they don't seem to be afraid. They don't seem to be afraid to say, we messed up, reverse, and figure out what the right direction would be. And a good example of that is 3.24, where they had the inventory screen and everyone complained about the drawer. The drawer was bad. The drawer is bad. So what do? We'll get rid of the drawer. You still got to go to your kiosk and hit and to get your inventory, but we're gonna get rid of the drawer and we'll kind of reapproach this. So, you know, hover mode, they've done that with the drawer. They've done it, I want to say, a couple of times from some other things I can't think of them off the top of my head. But no, I don't think
the landing
they're gonna make
splines.
this game. Landing splines, yeah.
Mhm.
I don't think the issue is going to be too complicated. I think the issue is CIG needs to make sure that there's a reason for everyone to play. Because I've heard people say, well, I don't like cargo. Cargo's too complicated. It's like, cool, then go around and fly and shoot people in the face. Like that should be a legitimate gameplay loop. But I really like cargo, and it's something it's really crazy when when it first came out, when 3.24 first came out, where I had a group of people, like 6 or 7 people in a caterpillar, and we flew in the caterpillar, landed, all the doors opened at the same time. Everyone pulled out their, one person walked over, pulled up the cargo, people pulled out their tractor beams, and it was just this like dance of tractor beams and boxes that were just moving across the bay, and everything was loaded up, and someone was organizing it, and then we were good. Everyone got on board, closed up, and flew away. We had a couple of escorts who flew with us. It was this sort of dance of coordination, and it's like, wow, I'm having fun. This is enjoyable, because the problem about fun is that fun is contextual.
Yeah.
So like, people like to play Viscera cleanup detail. Like there's pressure washer simulator. Like there's house flipper simulator. These are games that people enjoy. So it's just a matter of finding where that enjoyment is in these gameplay loops, and if there is enjoyment. And I think if CIG says there's no one playing these loops, they'll just toss it and just
and if you find a good org, it's easy to find people who will pick up the jobs that you don't want to do.
Yeah.
If you look at something like Power Wash Simulator, right, it is a easy game to get into and just pick up and start doing stuff, right? And there's like this degree of like satisfaction to it, right? Just compare how like if CIG were to implement something like that in Star Citizen, would it be unnecessarily complicated? That's where I think they miss the mark sometimes, right? And I think Morphologis has brought this up in one of his videos in the past, where it's like, it's literally just the amount of, like, in your second to second, moment to moment experience of playing Star Citizen and just trying to accomplish a goal over 5-10 minutes or an hour or whatever it is, there's just so many little like micro hiccups that take place. Individually, not a big deal, but in the grand scheme of your entire play session, they build up to the point where it's like, this is so frustrating. And I think if they just get the flow right and deal with, even from just a user experience point of view, from a mechanical point of view, if they just polish this up and make things smoother, like for me personally, just like getting in and out of my ship is like, it kind of gives you a headache, man, because it's like it's such a jarring thing to just get snapped into this animation, and it takes so long, and then then there's a micro delay, and then you've got control, and then you want to do this, and you know what I'm saying? If that gets smoothed out and made very, very, flow really organically and really, really nicely from like second to second, then it doesn't matter how tedious things become or how arduous things become, because the flow of the action of actually doing it is fun. You know what I'm saying? And that to me is like Power Wash Simulator.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right, guys. Thank you all so much for joining me for this show, this talk. This was a good look at the state of the game, kind of expectations, not really talking about features individually, but just how the game is being perceived right now and where it's headed. We had many more things that we could talk about, but this has gone for plenty of time, and I know people like Morph it is late over there, so want to make sure everybody gets a chance to get off and do what they have planned for the rest of their lovely Saturday. But thank you again, guys, all for joining me for this. I'm going to let you, we'll go down the line real quick and let you guys talk about where your own content can be found. Morph, why don't we start with you?
Find me on YouTube at Morphologis, as well as on Twitch. I'm also on Twitter, if you're curious to watch me say things. Anyway, yeah.
Just say stuff.
Watch me say things.
Say stuff.
Sulyce, how about
If you want to watch me, talk. Yeah, so again, I host the Beyond the Verse podcast. That's all social media /BTV_cast. Just start there and go through it. I record each week over all the news, reviews, analysis that drops, and I digest it for entertainment. But you can go and watch or listen, YouTube or Spotify podcast. So again, thanks so much for having me, Space Tomato. It's been really it's been a really fun conversation.
Of course. Historian?
Hi, I'm Paul. You can find me at youtube.com/theastropub or youtube.com/theastropub live, and then or youtube.com/theastrohistorian. And you can also find me at twitch.tv/theastropub. Too many things. Also on Twitter, and I've been recently on Blue Sky more and trying to diversify my social media presence. But if you like lore, The Astrohistorian, we do talks like this and other things on the Astropub, gameplay as well. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So
awesome. And Voidude?
Cool. Yep. You can find me on YouTube at Voidude, one word, and on Twitch at Voidude, twitch.tv/Voidude for just like the worst Star Citizen gameplay you've ever experienced in your life.
He's lying.
It's good gameplay.
It is the most amazing gameplay in the game that I've seen, and the hottest takes of any human being.
I love
And I'm not
the
saying this-
self-made sound effects.
And I'm not just saying that because Voidy has every other video I find Voidy fluffing me in some way, shape, or form in there. But
You're very fluffable, man. What can I say?
I am a very fluffable man.
All right, y'all. Hope you
Thank you so
enjoyed.
much for having me.
Yeah, of course, man. Of course. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. This is Citizen Central. We do this about once a month, but it's been a little while since the last episode. We'll see how this one goes. Maybe we'll get back onto a regular showing, but you can also check out Launch Sequence Podcast. Both are published on Space Tomato 2. Launch Sequence Podcast happening every week. And if you would like to stick around, I know we are live on Twitch right now. We'll also be going live on YouTube in about 3 minutes. If you'd like to stick around, we'll be doing some exploration gameplay with my org over on Microtech. So if you are not part of the org, you can sign up and join us if you'd like. And if you are part of the org, I'll see you there. Thank you, Mrs. Tomato, for dropping all those links to everybody in the chat. And once again, thank you guys for joining me for the talk. I will see you all on the next one. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. And see you later.